Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom, and in this video I'm going to look at the homeschool laws of Australia. Now, I am not a lawyer. I'm not an expert in education law. I'm not Australian. I think you could probably figure that out. I'm an American, and I am using a website called study.com, which is the same curriculum website I used when I did my Canada review. So this just seems to be a good secular website to find basic information, to just kind of do this overview of homeschool law throughout the world. In this case, we're looking at Australia, and it did Canada pretty well as well. The main thing you're going to find if you do Google this information is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. They're an alt-right Christian group. I don't want to take information from them because I don't want to support them, because they're, again, an alt-right Christian group that wants to deregulate education entirely because they're crazy and they want to abuse and neglect children. And yeah, I don't want anything to do with them because, again, crazy Christians, and who are just kind of alt-right on the far right of Christianity, not people who, as far as I know, I'm not against Christianity, but sane Christians who homeschool don't necessarily want complete deregulation because they actually plan to educate their children and not indoctrinate them. But moving on to Australia. So this is a brief overview. Again, obviously not Australian, and not an expert. So this is a brief overview, again, from study.com. I will link this website in the review. Again, this is a curriculum website, but it provides the basic information I need. So let's move on and look at the Australian territories. So it looks like it's going to start off with, and for some reason, it's talking about the Australian Capital Territory, which I believe is Canberra. Probably mispronouncing that. But this is the homeschool laws for them. So parents who wish to homeschool in the Australian Capital Territory must register with the Director General every 2 years. And in order to be approved for home education, families must submit all curriculum and study goals planned for the registration period as requested. In addition, coursework and assignments must be submitted for review once per year during the approval period and be available for inspection. Families must request renewals in a 2-year increments if all conditions have been met. Okay, not too bad. It could be worse. And it looks like New South Wales is worse. So families in New South Wales who wish to homeschool must register with the Office of the Board of Studies to gain approval to homeschool. A home visit is to assess proposed education program is required, and is also a contingency for renewal. Initial approval may be for less than 2 years. Parents must follow Australian national curriculum syllabi according to the following grade levels. Oh, fun. While I'm not against home studies, this is probably the most complicated system I've seen in these reviews. So kindergarten to year 6, English, mathematics, science, history, art, health, and physical education. Year 7 to 10, English, mathematics, science, history, art, health, and physical education. Year 11 and year 12, 2 units of English, 6 units of courses developed by the board, 3 2-unit courses for 4 subjects. Okay, I'm reading this directly off them, so I'm not even thoroughly what that means. But again, not Australian. So records must be kept in the form of portfolios, progress reports, and weekly learning logs, and are part of the renewal process. So yeah, they're heavy on the paperwork. Kind of similar to both New York City and California. Kind of heavy on the paperwork. So let's move on to the Northern Territory here. Parents in the Northern Territory must apply for registration, and through an approval process will have a home visit by an authorized official. Students' particular education needs, the education plan, homeschool site, and planned homeschool hours will be analyzed during the course of the approval process. If approved, the registration to homeschool is good for 1 year, at which time the parent must seek re-registration. Families who homeschool in the Northern Territory must follow either the Australian National Curriculum or another curriculum approved by the Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority. Interesting. I wonder if it's possible to unschool in Australia. Seems like they have a lot of regulation, but as much as pretty as Australia is, I've never been there. It's on the list. My husband briefly there, he spent more time in New Zealand. But it looks like it's paperwork heavy. All right, let's move on to Queensland. Queensland families may opt to homeschool by registering and being approved to do so. Once approved to homeschool in Queensland's family do not have to re-register, provided they meet the yearly reporting requirements. These reporting requirements consist of submission of a portfolio of the student's work samples along with outcomes the child's completed and educational experiences he or she has had. Report must also include types of study materials the child has worked with throughout the year and include projects, models, observation logs, stories, and essays. So essentially, keep track of what your kid is doing and report it every year. Doesn't seem too difficult because it doesn't look like you have to register every year and there's no home visit required. So let's move on to South Australia. So in South Australia, parents wishing to homeschool must take a circuitous route, so circular, probably mispronouncing that word. Before applying to homeschool, parents must first enroll their child in a Southern Australian school. Then they apply for exemption from the compulsory attendance, at which time the home study will be conducted, along with an examination of the study plan that is to be aligned with the Australian curriculum. If approved, the exemption will last 12 months or 1 year. Student progress is reviewed annually, and the exemption is renewable upon satisfactory progress. So you have to register to a public school and then get past pretty much an exemption process and a registration process every year. So Southern Australia, interesting. Tasmania. In Tasmania, parents who wish to homeschool must apply to the Tasmanian Home Education Advisory Council for approval. Application materials must include Home Education Summary and Plan, which is acronymed as HESP. This includes a list of books and materials to be used and goals to be reached over the course of the academic year. Curriculum is determined by the parents and does not need to follow the Australian national curriculum, so a little bit easier. After being granted permission to homeschool, parents can expect an initial monitoring visit of 1 to 2 months after the application is approved. Annual or biannual follow-ups will be required to determine the child's progress and academic plan. So essentially they keep an eye on things, make sure you're educating your kid. Not too bad. Victoria. Families in Victoria must apply to homeschool their children on an annual basis. Parents must agree to provide instruction in 8 specific areas, including math, English, and science. Specific lessons and curriculum must be used are determined by the individual family. So there's not really a lot of control by the government here. Further evaluation is not usually required. Parents should document their children's progress in all subjects in the event there is a concern requiring the child's advancement. So essentially, keep track of what you're learning so they can check to see if there's an issue. So that's about it. Looks like Victoria is relatively easy. Western Australia. So this is the last one in this last province here. In Western Australia, parents must homeschool after applying to the Department of Education and receiving approval to educate their child at home. There is no standard curriculum or any lessons plan parents must use, but significant progress must be made in each academic year. Annual visits from moderators of the home education will be made to review each student's academic record in accordance with the school curriculum and standard authority. Parents should keep a journal or portfolio of the child's work in subjects demonstrated their projects. So essentially, they can cancel it if your kid isn't progressing. So essentially, homeschool your kids, register. They're going to keep an eye on things to make sure your child is progressing academically, and otherwise they're going to essentially make you send your kid to school. So that would be it for Australia. Again, as opposed to the US, which is cut up to a bunch of little tiny pieces, Australia and Canada are larger countries, but they're cut into larger pieces as well, possibly because they're not quite as crazy as the US. Yeah, the US has far too many pieces. Probably the reason we're slightly nuts. But that is it for Australia. Again, this is an overview on Mod Australia. This information is coming from study.com and this is a curriculum website. So they're probably going to be decently accurate just because they're homeschooling is what funds their business. But that is Australia and all the provinces. And that is it for this video. Again, not a lawyer, not Australian. Check with your province. Also, laws change. So that's it. Thank you. If you like this video, like and subscribe. I have other legal videos, Canada, most of the US. I'm going to try to cover the rest of the world as I can. Thank you.